Hello and welcome all to B2B Marketers Forum, organized by Elets Technomedia with knowledge partner Elets BrandStory. So this B2B Marketers Forum is a customer-centric platform in which we will be discussing the best practices for customer journey and GTM excellence. This forum is organized with the notion to discover actionable strategies, real-world examples, and expert insights on optimizing customer journeys and developing effective go-to-market strategies that prioritize customer needs. This webinar gathers eminent industry leaders from different organizations, and this platform, Elets BrandStory, is a community which focuses on building brands and marketing and crafting meaningful dialogues with the leaders shaping the growing brands. So as we uncover and engage with these leaders over here, let me introduce you to our panelists for this webinar today, Mr. Apoorv Mathur, Field Marketing Lead at IBM, and Mr. Rahul Menon, Group Marketing Manager of India and SAARC from Zendesk. I welcome you both to our webinar today. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having us.
Great. So this is an interactive, one-to-one discussion that we have, both of you. So thank you so much for joining. Let us start with one-by-one questions for all, but please feel free to share your, ideas and thoughts on any question that is put out. My first question would be to Mr. Apoorv. So, sir, as you know, leveraging cutting-edge technology and data solutions these days is very essential for making the customer experience more personalized. How can we leverage AI and CRM systems to create more personalized B2B customer journeys, according to you? And what role does field marketing play in enhancing this kind of personalization? Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Savri, for this question. I think so it's very imperative to understand the amount of data that we generate, specifically with the product around, be it a B2C kind of a product or a B2B kind of a product, right? So in a B2C, you have various different touch points, and you can see a lot of action happen right and fold in front of you. But in a B2B environment, most of these things are happening in the background, where a lot of decision making and a lot of questioning is happening in the background before deal is moving towards a closure, where it's moving towards a win kind of an environment, right? And there are several touch points that keep happening around. So I think so the thought process of personalizing is very important, because as a B2B buying journey happens, there are various different stakeholders, various different decision makers, with various different thought processes. For example, if a software has to be laid out for an organization, as simple as a CRM system for that matter, there would be so many various different stakeholders that would be involved to kind of nurture around with, to have a conversation around with, and finally kind of do a product pitch that emphasizes on the various different aspects that each and every stakeholder is interested and is looking out and seeking answers and solutions for, right? So with so much of data being generated around us, predictive analytics becomes one of the most important criteria, in terms of, or rather the first stage before you can actually do the personalization. So with all of this data being generated in the CRM system altogether, be it for any organization, there are various different touch points in this data that, kind of creates a lot of insights, which also yields a lot of results if those insights have been utilized at its perfect level. The next very important thing, as I mentioned, was the customer segmentation. So you really need to know your customer segmentation really well, as to where in the hierarchy are they falling out, which industry are they falling out in, and what are the various different concerns around this dynamic approach towards personalization. So segmentation becomes one of the second most important thing. The other thing is, once you have your personalization ideas created, you are understanding your audience really well, your customer segmentation is done, you need to enhance your delivery mechanism of the content. So the content also needs to be personalized really well. Now, for example, if a product is focused towards financial services, uh, the main stakeholder would be a thought process of a CFO, but then the decision maker, or rather the biggest influencer, would be a CIO in that entire conversation, right? So you really need to understand the CIO's office, do the kind of segmentation in a certain way that you can understand what dynamic content can be delivered to them. Uh, and that's where the positioning of the product also happens really well. While these people are all across, say for example, in a CIO's office, they are on LinkedIn, they are on Twitter, they are on various different forums. You really need to target with an omni-channel approach where the marketing message kind of nurtures them towards the try and the buy stage of the user journey, right? And as a field marketer, the most imperative thing is to have a complete understanding of what the customer is feeling in terms of the sentiment. Where is this the direction which is going through? What thought processes the customer is having with the various different stakeholders, and you really need to build that out as a strong relationship before sales can really come in and kind of have that conversations which becomes salesy. So you need to first earn the confidence of this customer, and that's where the field marketing with various different approaches comes into the picture, right? And that's where a lot of localization of the content can happen. So there could be some assets which can be based on the behavior, based with the predictive analytics. Maybe the customer falls into a learn stage kind of a category, right? So as a field marketer, you have built that relationship. You would want to nurture by using assets which are very relevant for him in terms of learning and understanding. And if the customer is able to do a competitive analysis, I think so that's where a field marketer's job truly deserves in light to come into the picture. And specifically, if it is account-based marketing, it becomes even more imperative for the field marketer to really have a deep-rooted understanding of that account, what the account imperatives are, what is it that a decision is trying to be made. Is this the right decision for the customer? Is something as insights that a field marketer brings onto the table into an organization, and kind of talk about, oh, you know what, it's not just this opportunity, but there can be several other touch points where the opportunity might be around this, and a solution offering could be, instead of an A, could be a B, right? So that's where field marketing in general comes into the direct influence before the sales conversation can even start off. So I think so that's the holistic understanding that I can share about, leveraging the CRM data that you have, and how field marketers can use this to personalize the conversation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Apoorv. That was a very comprehensive answer. Thank you so much for sharing so many insights around not just about customer segmentation, positioning of the product, but also the different aspects around field marketing. So thank you so much for sharing. I do have follow-up questions for you, but first I would like to take one question from Mr. Rahul. So, sir, Mr. Rahul, as we were talking about personalization for customer experience, and we were talking about different latest emerging technology that can be leveraged, whether it may be AI or others. So coming on to technology integration with Zendesk, as well as Zendesk offers solutions for customer engagement, how do you integrate these tools into your own B2B marketing efforts to personalize the customer journey and also to address the pain points? Over to you.
Sure. So firstly, thank you, Dr. Asawari, for having us on the forum. I'll take the Zendesk aspect, but I'll just maybe try to build it into a larger framework. Of course, there's a lot of tools and a lot of technologies over there. One of the aspects which I found to be very crucial is the need to integrate these technologies in really the right way. That's like, there have been cases where we see one particular team using a product, and say some other teams don't use that product, and then you don't see that proper integration. Now, just an example, and I've heard of this in some other company where there was a sales outreach tool, either like an outreach.io or sales.io, whichever tool. The way it was executed in that particular company was they did not integrate it with the rest of the stack. Of course, no, that's not a fault of the product itself, but the way in which it was integrated. So what it meant is the sales team would continuously keep sending emailers, and even if the customer has made a purchase, those emailers don't stop. because obviously there's that input is not going back to the system that this person is already an existing customer and does not need further outreach emails. So one of the key aspects with any technology for that matter is ensuring that the tools are not in silos. It's really well integrated, well connected with your entire stack. Even if there are fewer tools, it makes sense to have the right kind of tools and the right kind of integration essentially with the tools. Now, regarding the question around Zendesk, now the area where we kind of play in is mostly around customer experience, and in many cases it's a interaction which happens say after the sale might kind of be there. Now, if say there's a customer grievance, now the crucial aspect is maybe there's the customer is unhappy and they need a certain kind of empathy, which might be very difficult for an agent who is bogged down with 10 parallel conversations which is happening. So in this case, one of the areas where Zendesk could kind of come in and help is maybe make that entire query simpler. Like if it's like the customer has written maybe a couple of paragraphs, it might be very difficult for a overworked agent to consume all of that. So there could be easy summary of that data. Another aspect could be the intent, essentially figuring out what category they are what category their complaint is in. Is it an issue of the size not matching? Is it an issue of the product being damaged? Whatever. Or it could be something as simple as writing the right tonality. As I said, if the customer is a bit unhappy, maybe the agent needs to sound more sympathetic. So that kind of a tonality change could be done by Zendesk. And similarly, of course, I'm just talking of some use cases, but there are plenty of such use cases. The key really is to figure out how to best use the technologies in the right way, integrate it with the rest of the stack, because a siloed tool is honestly no use at all. I would consider a siloed tool is just an expense. It's not going to help any marketer or any salesperson except in a very, very narrow way. So to really get the full power of the platform, there has to be that proper integration.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rahul. And as rightly mentioned by you, integrating the tools that are being used by the organization into all different platforms that they have, and also all different verticals, have been something that not only is being adopted by all the organizations right now, but also by government systems, because some of the web shows that we hear, most of the government is also prioritizing to have more integrated systems on a national-wide basis. So when we are doing the same in our organizations as well, definitely it would add. So along the same lines, as you were sharing that, making the customer journey simpler is the most important priority, as you were sharing. My next question is along the same lines to Mr. Apoorv. When we are talking about making mapping the customer journey for better experience, better customer-centric experience, in your experience, what techniques or tools have been the most effective in mapping the B2B customer journeys? Also in identifying critical touch points and pain points, what would you want to express on that?
Sure, I think so. Rahul, very interesting point about the entire system of how it's been working, and a very wonderful example of how AI kind of really helps summarization and a lot of different things for the assistants capabilities to improve the performance of the human, right? So living in the AI world, it's become even more important to understand where your customer is trying to find you. And having a great understanding of customer journey mapping is one of those key elements as a marketer that one needs to really understand and find where the customer is. Where are the different touch points that you have set up? The customers are actually looking into that. It's as easy as having signboards on a road where you want your customer to drive down to, and it's a very long drive, right? And you want him to take the right set of turns that you intend that he would take. But as we know it, a customer buying journey is never linear. It's always with a lot of twists and turns, right? So it's very important to get the entire user experience with that journey built in such a way that it yields to the results that you have been looking out for. And to do that, there are several different tools and software that are available you can off the market to kind of see how it all works. But basically, you pick up any tool, it's all about understanding what digital traces a person leaves, right? So that's the first and the most important thing that comes up, that the person has to be digitally available. So your buyer needs to be online, and primitively there are heavy chances that he will be, except if he's from a public sector. But private segment, generally you would find them online, and kind of showcasing the digital foot trail altogether. So you can have a lot of touch points. Say, for example, a website landing page, which can be really personalized to with the dynamic content that I was talking about, which really speaks to the customer, speaks his language, and makes him move forward in the journey. And in a B2B space, there is never one touch point that really works, or there are not several touch points that kind of accumulate to one outcome. But there are these bursts of touch point that really work out, and it has to be an omni-channel experience. So if you break down a regular B2B buying journey, which is upwards of say 100K or a 500K kind of a deal, we have run analytics and we have found that there are generally 7 to 10 different touch points that need to go in for a deal closure to happen, and they can be very specific with these set of audiences, right? So you could have various different tactics built out. It could be a white paper, it could be a landing page, it could be a text sheet, a text spec sheet for that matter. Right? It can have various different tactics, but one thing is very certain is how do you keep that interaction going on? So if somebody has downloaded a white paper, you can always gate it. You can have the information pull out before they download it. So, I mean, IDC or a Gartner report generally always is gated, right? And that's where the customer journey we feel begins, but it actually begins way before. It could be on a website like, say, for example, G2, which is a B2B market marketplace for buying, right? So you have to really keep tracking your customer and trying to find those bits and bits of information as to what research is happening. You really need to have the understanding of the, say, for example, the intent data. What is it that the customer really intends? Is he just browsing by, or is he really shopping, right? We all go to the mall, but not every time we pick up something from a shop, right? We don't pick up everything from a shop for that matter either. So you really have to understand and break it down and have those key touch points, those kind of matrix that needs to be built out, which are high impact touch points. And this can be done with a lot of data that is being generated. So if you see a cookie pool ID information and see where they all have been shopping around or have been searching around, what different kinds of touch points they have had, there's more likely with the data analysis that you can find there must be a frequent touch point that they keep doing. It could be as simple as they keep landing on your page again and again, and they're trying to learn about that one particular asset, that one particular thing. And the organization that I work with is one of the biggest shops. It's not just one kind of product that we deal in. There are various different things that we have. Uh, and it's a big mall altogether. It's not one single shop. So you really have to be sure what shop the customer has been attending, what counter is he going to, and what is it that he keeps looking up as a product, keeps reading the label information, and then keeps it back, and what is that next nudge that you need. And you see this very clearly coming out in a B2C segment. If you look at the way Myntra does customer journey mapping, is really intelligent with regards to how they can understand what's been added to the cart, what's been wishlisted, what's been favorited. And you already have a lot of data with the buying behavior that has already happened with that particular customer. So you have real deal insights as to what color do they generally end up buying, what time of the day, what day of the week, what part of the month are they most active on that app. Uh, and there have been several insights that there can be some days where the person is ready to purchase versus the other days where he's ready to browse. And you have to, if you have to translate it back to a B2B environment, you need to see how the CFOs are trailing on to the product that you want them to envision in their organization, how a CTO is doing that digital touch points. And it's all about marrying that data and understanding those nuances. Right, so there are various different tools. For example, if I had to lay out, it could be as simple as Google Analytics integration on your website to kind of understand what is the repeat that a customer is coming back to you. And if they are coming back, if they are pushing the same set of buttons, the same kind of CTAs, is there something that you can personalize for them? Can you do a content dynamic play where it addresses specifically to their needs? I think so. That's where the high frequent quality touch points can be created. You could do heat maps, understanding how a person's behavior or a single segment user is kind of using your web page, or you could have this kind of a certain person move up to a physical face-to-face event, wherein you can pitch a free entry or a free pass where he can learn more about the product. So I think it's all about understanding the various different touch points that a customer is having during the journey. Now, the various ways that you can reach out to solve his query, it doesn't have to be face to face, it doesn't have to be online, but it has to be at the right time when he needs it. And the real question is, are you there? And then there's a lot of cross-functional analysis that can also take place. So if you're looking at a particular buyer who's a very big account to you, that you're really interested for a closure with, you can break them down, understand the segmentation as to who the real buyer is, who are the influencers, who are the practitioners in that, and kind of have developed assets specifically and target them from a paid media perspective, from a paid social perspective. And, kind of if they lose out on the user journey, and if you know that there are 7 to 8 touch points and an individual dropped off at the third touch point, what is the most frequently used based on your data, based on your predictive analytics, that this next touch point would have a probability of say 70% that it would turn out with this individual to move him to the next stage. So I think so that's how a customer journey mapping is being generally done in this B2B space. And that looks like the future forward with so many tools around the horizon that kind of do the customer mapping.
Thank you so much, Mr. Apoorv. There were some great examples that you shared in such nice language. So it is very easy I'm sure it is very easy for our audience as well to understand. And as rightly said, shutting down the data that you have been gathering and also coming up with which all different areas we can, engage the customer to better suit to their needs and their patterns. It's definitely pure customer experience for making the entire experience more better. So as we are talking about all kinds of personalization, the different ways that we can personalize the customer experience, my next question to Mr. Rahul is around the same, that as we're talking about customer-centric approaches, customer-centric solutions, as we have been discussing, are very vital. So how does the company define and implement a customer-centric approach in its B2B marketing strategies for a kind of company that you represent, which has, has been spread across different regions, India, SAARC region. So how can we, reach out to that?
Sorry, could you repeat? I think for some reason it must have been my internet, so I could not quite get the question. I'm so sorry.
Yes. So I wanted to know that, as a customer-centric approach is very vital, as we have been discussing. So how does a company define and implement a customer-centric approach in its B2B marketing strategy for an organization that you represent, which is spread out across different regions?
So that's a good question, and I mean the way I would, and maybe I'm just taking a step back, but see, fundamentally we would never ever think that B2C companies have to be told to be customer centric. It's maybe just ingrained in their case that they will be customer centric, and we can think of, like, I remember this milkshake story which is attributed to Clayton Christensen, where he kind of created the jobs to be done framework, and it all boiled down to that customer need as to what exactly the customer was trying to solve, and everything kind of flowing out. So B2C has always seen that. It's maybe in the case of B2B that we are seeing this come up a bit more now. Where I feel the solutions are maybe firstly in the sense that some customer-centric functions which exist might not necessarily be thought of as a profit center at this point of time. Many of them are still thought of as a cost center. So there's that mindset shift that needs to happen over a point of time. And I'm just talking generally. I'm not talking about any company, because some companies are already there. Some companies are in the process. But there has to be that shift from a cost center to a profit center when it comes to dealing with customers. Now, this could come up in various ways. Like if I look at a typical, say, a customer success function, many of them might be gold on input metrics, or not necessarily on the metrics which truly matter to the business, but maybe the focus should shift towards something like whether say it's a retention, or whether it's a upsell revenue or a cross-sell revenue, those kind of things. So that kind of helps change that particular conversation. And this, of course, can also translate to marketing functions which are facing similar challenges. Like some marketing functions have a challenge of the cost center, profit center, some of them not so much. But by kind of looking at making that shift, getting things as closer to the business as possible, I think that's an opportunity. Another key area which I feel is the lack of one single person looking at the customer needs. I know some companies have an exec like a chief customer officer, but in many other cases, it's not always the case. Like you would not have one single executive who is handling that particular thing. It makes a lot of difference to have one single executive do that. Of course, there are pros and cons, but that's an approach that can be explored a bit more for select companies. Another aspect which I feel is when we look at the feedback, like with B2C, feedback is fairly easy. I mean, you kind of see a bunch of those forms, whether we take a flight or we kind of make a purchase. There is an instant feedback that we kind of pass on. In B2B, that does not quite happen in the same way. One is there's a differentiation between users and buyers. The buyers are not necessarily the end users of many of our products. So obviously, there's a different kind of feedback that has to be captured. So that's an area where there has to be attention. The second bit is in terms of the feedback itself comes from sales and customer success and other such functions. So there's a necessity to capture all of that feedback. While in many cases in B2C, it's automated. In B2B, we don't necessarily see that happen. So there's a necessity to collect all of that data, ensure that these are analyzed and acted upon. Once we look at all of that, I think that kind of helps make a shift in a sense to a more customer-centric B2B marketing kind of an approach. That's what I've kind of seen. So in summary, it's like having that exec, hopefully an exec who is looking at the customer needs, thinking of the customer perspective, a more comprehensive feedback collection and analysis, and also, of course, the cost center to profit center shift, essentially looking at that for functions which might currently be targeted, looked upon as a cost center within marketing or within other functions.
Sure. So thank you so much for sharing all, these insights. So definitely some very vital points that I was noting down. Another question that I wanted to ask from both our panelists over here is the future of, B2B marketing and B2B customer experience for that matter. According to you both, what emerging trends in the customer-centric B2B marketing do you see, being very vital? And how is the organization that you guys represent preparing to stay ahead of the curve? Or how can organizations that are, part of the Indian landscape can keep themselves ahead of the curve, especially in terms of adopting new technologies and aligning with evolving customer expectations? So let us start with Mr. Apoorv.
Right. I think so. That's a very interesting question. If you look at the landscape and how things are changing, specifically with B2B and how the future looks like, I think so. I would just go back for a quick second and tell you we are a 112-year-old organization. We have approximately 8,500 products on shop to sell. Right. So we have done a lot of these 112 years have been full of just innovation. And one of the biggest reasons that an organization as large as IBM has survived, the Dell, the Apple, Lenovo, they have all come back probably half our age, less than half our age, right? So I think so innovation is the number one key. And for anything to remain very relevant in B2B and what the future looks like, I think so this is a scape that will always keep going on. Right. And if you look at the dynamic shift, if you just look at the segment that Rahul and I, we kind of work with the IT services of sorts and product-centric conversations with B2B, I think so. There's been a dynamic shift, specifically if you look at the last 10 years. A lot of things that were hardware driven have now moved to cloud, right? And when the cloud adoption happened, there were a lot of people who jumped on that bandwagon. The people were still very slow, they were reluctant, they were still moving on. So I think so innovation really brings out, and uh, we were also one of the first folks to kind of land up to the cloud, and we had a great amount of marketing dollars spent to kind of talk about how great it is and how beautifully everything works. But not every buyer is ready to invest that kind of money on day one. It's only until COVID, each and every one wanted to be a part of the cloud journey, right? So the transformation stories that we were trying to have a conversation with the clients for uh, became so relevant to them in one single evening, and they really wanted to hop onto that transformation journey altogether, right? And once everything was in cloud, there has been a lot of movement and development on how you can pull out insights from the data that is lying around. So there's a lot of ML, machine learning algorithms that took off, and this is 2021 that I'm talking about. And right over there on the horizon, we had the thought process of AI, which is nothing but the trained models that you can have the conversation with. And there have been so many different kind of businesses that have kind of come out of it. And IBM as an organization, we have our own models. We have open sourced it. Our suite of models are called Granite. We house models such as from Meta, from Llama, all the different kind of models. We have different models dependent on the different set of industries. So there's a different model for a finance use case, a different model for an HR use case in an organization. There are various different ways in which we are going out to the market with this thought process. And I think so innovation stands at the center of this. And when I talk about the organization in general, we are the only organization in the world year after year who has received the most number of patents across. It's not Google, it's not Apple, but it's actually IBM, right? And these are B2B patents, right? So we are the number one in the field of moving towards quantum computing. We are the only ones who are investing more than $5 billion every year, right? So innovation uh, is the only strategy that helps you move long term, specifically in a B2B environment. And as mentioned in the previous questions, the marketing remains the same. It's the tactics which kind of really work. You really have to understand as a field marketer, as a person who's practicing marketing, to understand the sentiment of what's happening in the market. What is it that the clients are saying, and take it back to the organization where specifically R&D is of the utmost importance, right? That's where a lot of products are being built. That's how the future for the next 3, 5, 10 years kind of comes out. And whenever we IBM hosts any kind of long conversations or a convention where we have a lot of representation from our clients, we always talk about how technology transformation looks like 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead in time. What are the different domains which are likely to be big bets, right? So we come out with a lot of marketing materials as well, which we theme as the big bets for this year for the CFOs, for the CIOs, for the CEOs. And there are various different reports that we invest to create and curate all together, which entitles to the various different pain points of the customers. And I think so it's a journey that's cyclic, uh, and it keeps moving forward. So if you ask me a relative question that you have asked, that how does the future look like, I think so the future looks exactly how it was 10 years ago, where we wanted the customer to move to a certain journey till a real reason has been created. And I think so it's going to go on, and it's on the marketers bandwagon to kind of hop on the clients and the customers with a convincing aspect that this is how the future looks like. So it's a cycle.
Thank you so much, Mr. Apoorv. And while you were sharing all your thoughts, I was having multiple different questions coming up in my mind to ask you as follow-ups. But as we come down to the very end of our discussion, we will take those questions maybe in some future episode of this series. So again, the question to Mr. Rahul would be the same. So as we move towards future with emerging trends in customer-centric B2B marketing, how is the organizations, according to you, preparing to stay ahead of the curve? Or how can the organizations keep themselves ahead of the curve, especially in terms of adopting new technologies and aligning with the evolving customer expectations, which are increasing every day?
Great. So, in fact, I agree 100% with everything that Apoorv said. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to add on to a few select points where I have seen a few trends. One is, of course, I'm not kind of getting onto the buzzword bandwagon, but obviously AI has had an impact. It's just about how do we how do we see it evolve. Honestly, it's not easy for any of us to predict how things will be, but in areas where automation makes sense and it does not reduce the output quality, it does definitely get pulled. It will be an area where we would want to look out for. There have been some select areas where we have deployed and we will continue to see AI enhancements, and certain areas where we find that it's maybe not up to like I think content marketing is maybe one of those areas where people expected AI to have an incredible impact, but to the point that now it seems entirely unoriginal. People can even figure out what content is entirely AI generated. So it's a mixed bag. There are certain areas where we see there to be an advantage, certain areas where not quite so much. The other bit, and I would have loved to touch upon this earlier, but I kind of missed on this. But see, a shift which has happened is the sales marketing collaboration bit. Like earlier, it was marketing just did its vanity metrics bit. We would pump out maybe hundreds or thousands of MQLs and send it out across to sales, and sales just figures out what to do with it. Now it's different. Now we're seeing it to be a point where marketing is more and more accountable towards a point which is close to revenue. Like we're seeing the sales accepted pipeline to be a crucial metric. In some cases, the impact on bookings or revenue is also looked upon as an important metric. Where I expect things will kind of go forward is there will be an expectation on marketing to show an even stronger impact on revenue. Now, part of it would be a continuation of the sales accepted pipeline and the booking influence thing. And part of it could be in select areas like, say, self-serve, where I know in some companies the product owns it, some companies marketing owns it, but there could be a case where marketing is more and more held accountable for self-serve business, cases where there's no sales touch needed, but you are able to kind of generate revenue. So I expect that could be an area because we're seeing some kind of an evolution within marketing. So again, all of these are guesses. None of us have a crystal ball. So this is all an estimate as to how things might evolve. The other bit is data. And I know Apoorv also mentioned about data as a crucial thing. Like when we look at it, we have a ton of data, but are we able to leverage all of that data in the perfect way? Not 100%. Like if I look at intent data, I know some geographies it works very well, some geographies not quite so much. Or see, even within certain other data which we have, the data quality might not be top notch. So there might be efforts needed to get the data enriched and to a quality where it's actually actionable. So I expect there would be more and more initiatives or more and more marketing initiatives towards making that data usable and actionable. So I expect these three will be the key areas in my opinion, like maybe a continuation of the AI, marketing as a tool, which marketing as a function, which has a stronger impact on the revenue. And finally, the journey towards better quality data and better data enrichment.
And as you rightly said, the integration of sales and marketing is now all the more prominent. But I feel like, is it just sales and marketing, or is it sales, marketing, and tech integration that is all the more prominent now, with the integration of technology, and with technology affecting pretty much all different areas within an organization? I feel as the more the technology would develop in future, the more we will have, more unified systems of working. Right now, as we are, working together hand in hand with marketing and sales, later on it would be more, domains working all together as one towards one specific goal, which is more personalization, more options, and keeping the customer more at prominence. So that is just something that I feel. Of course, we have our experts over here to correct me. But yes, with that, very interesting dialogue between us. We come down to the end of this discussion today. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much to our organizer, Elets and Elets BrandStory, for this webinar. Now we have one closing question to our audience. What do you think about the themes that were discussed today? Share us your thoughts and views on this video in the comments below. And also subscribe to the channel to stay tuned for more such interesting discussions all around B2B. So thank you so much for joining us. With that, we sign off now. Stay happy, stay healthy. Bye-bye.